Hi, this is Sandra Mianda from That Paperwork, and today I'm here to film another exciting video interview with the CEO of Optimus Fintech, Swapnil. Good afternoon, Swapnil.
Hi, Sandra. Great meeting you. Excited to be here.
It's a great pleasure to have you here because I know that you came quite a way from San Francisco to be part of this community. So let's just go into it. Tell us a little bit more. So how did Optimus Fintech came about?
Well, Sandra, I've been working in the retail payments arena for the last decade. I've been working with large enterprises, mostly on the front end of solutioning, building, payment gateways, building new payment channels. And that's when we realized that, it's great that today these enterprises are building these front end experiences. But the payment back office, which is supposed to take care of all of this data, which is coming across payments, which is coming across billing systems, banks. So back office is the one who's responsible to take in this data, normalize it, reconcile, account. And again, that entire journey or process with the finance and accounting team was pretty much broken. Again, a lot of legacy tools were being used. There was a lot of pain when it came to handling such large volumes of data. And that's when, the idea came about, why not have a modern payment and finance back office that can go and power these initiatives? So from day one, we had a mission of creating an equally modern and a powerful back office which can automate all of these steps and empower those front-end payment journeys.
This is definitely something that I can relate to. It is a topic that's been talked a lot, in fact, during the conference this year. Those challenges precisely as businesses become complex and there's more touch point in terms of the data point and the visibility and transparency that comes into it. What do you see as the biggest pain point for those bank PSP, to essentially be able to aggregate, consolidate, and have this visibility to optimize and manage their operations more efficiently?
Absolutely. I think today, right, finance and treasury, I would break it down into 3 Ps. First P being parsing, where first challenge that any of these, finance or treasury teams has is, how do we get in this disparate set of data across those different touch points, whether it is, disparate data from billing systems, invoices, whether it is authorization files, settlement files, clearing files, banking files. How do we take in all this disparate data? How do we normalize it? How do we contextualize it? That itself is the first challenge where, how do I get in and get a clean set of data? Once they do that, the second P obviously is processes. That's where, again, because most of these teams are today struggling with this data, there aren't efficient processes in place. To give you an example, we see today a lot of organizations still doing summary level reconciliations because they just do not have the data nor the tools to go at a transaction level. And because they don't have these processes in place, that's where we come to our third P, which is profitability. Because they are not able to do this kind of a transaction level reconciliation, have that visibility, they don't know if there is leakage occurring in form of missing payments, in form of incorrect fees being charged, which again, pretty much affects the bottom line. So at a high level, that's where I say there are 3 Ps today which most of the finance and treasury teams are experiencing.
I think there's 2 points that you said that really resonated as well in this conversation is cleaning the data, right? Because to enable those businesses to get to that efficiency process, the starting point is extremely important. So there's all of those different touch points where the data then needs to be, reconciled and just enabling to, be serving visibility and a purpose for the Treasury to act on it. But the state point of getting the data clean, which is an increasingly important piece, is also something that I think the industry are being challenged a lot. But I would be, quite interested to hear as well in terms of how does that really impact with everything that you've mentioned, how does that really impact the business profitability from not having all of those processes? And you mentioned, we can even say there's even a lot of manual process, right? Not everyone even have systems, right? What is really the big, wider impact for a business in terms of the profitability or any different areas?
Absolutely. I think there are 2 important impacts. And again, I would break them down into one, like you mentioned, the operation inefficiency part, where today you have, large teams doing the same processes using Excel. So again, that is associated with high cost, longer times, lack of, processes, visibility and controls. So again, there is a big impact on profitability. And the second most important thing, which a lot of organizations don't realize, is the leakage aspect of it. So now, because they do not have these kind of processes in place, if there are any form of leakages, revenue leakages occurring in form of transaction leakages, incorrect fees, increased disputes, these are actually challenges which are affecting the CFO organization, because it eats into the bottom line. So at a high level, again, there is going to be an impact if you are not going to, have these kind of automated back office solutions.
And it is complex. You're definitely illustrating that. And when we think and we look at payment, right, just the aspect of processing payment, it's also very ambiguous, right, to be able to understand what are you playing with, right? What are those data? What are you seeing, as well in terms of the clients that you're managing, the complexity and how they can essentially get to that complexity of even just understanding your fees and the data that essentially lead, to the build of those fees, and of course then cascade to the commissions and payout. What's your view on that?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. If you even take a simple order to cash transaction today, right, it would have 3 to 4 touch points. Meaning that when I'm trying to, just go and get a visibility of my data across these payment flows, we are talking about taking in the invoices, ensuring if $100 is invoice, it's getting authorized by the gateway. There is no leakage in form of authorization mismatches, billing errors, taking the authorization data, ensuring it's been settled by the acquirers at T+1, ensuring there is no settlement outages. Also, like you mentioned, there's an important component of fees, because today every large enterprise, every organization is global. They have multiple payment partners they work with. Every payment partner has different fee structures, whether it's interchange plus pricing, whether it's platform pricing. So that's where also we see that today there isn't a clarity whether the fees that you are getting charged, are they correct? Is there a way to validate that? Again, after doing that, they have to ensure, right, that amount is getting deposited without settlement delays into their bank. So again, managing this form of complex data, and the funny thing is, all of this data is in a different file formats, right? You'll have MasterCard sending IPM file formats, you'll have a different SAP invoicing systems. So that's where, the challenges of getting all this data, normalizing it, and not just normalizing it, but contextualizing it. Because end of the day, we see organizations who have multiple different regions, geographies, fintechs have merchant IDs. So we also have to think about how do I contextualize this data by creating those tags, by, having the ability to slice and dice the data, dive into a particular store level. And, so essentially it is very important to create this payment data mart that I call, in terms of getting all this data in a single platform.
And there's a saying in the industry where it's very common nowadays to hear that data is the new currency. So I think there's a very clear acknowledgement about the power and the importance of data, not just from managing the operation, but also for the ownership and how that can drive the strategy of the business, right? It's a very 360 angle when it comes to that aspect. I think what will be really interesting is to understand also your vision in terms of what's essentially having the ideal back office setup that can alleviate all of those changes. Can you go a little bit further in terms of how your solution essentially can really help businesses to get to that a setup that can really be optimized to the requirement and the specific challenge that they're facing? Because every organizations are different, right? And you're working with a diverse ecosystem of merchants, banks, fintechs. So you have a very broad perspective there.
Absolutely. So just to even, before I go into a vision, right, the current problem that we are seeing today is most of these organizations, like you said, right, there are data silos that are created across finance teams, across accounting teams, payments teams. There isn't a single, unified system or a process to get everyone on the same page, have a single source of truth. So with that, our vision is to create a unified single source of truth, a single data platform, which can automate each and every step of the post-transaction journey, which includes getting in data across these different systems, normalizing them, then going and automating the processes from accounting and finance perspective, which include transaction level reconciliations, having the ability to do that on a day-to-day basis, finding exceptions, because you are going to find, challenges. You might have a day where someone doesn't send you a settlement, or there might be a missing payment. So even automating that entire exception management journey, then going ahead and automating the reporting and analytic, part of it, because we are sitting on a treasure trove of data in the back office, and today no one is actually, leveraging that data to monitor key KPIs in terms of the fees and commissions being charged, in terms of seeing what your cost of payments are, how do you reduce that, and finally then also going and automating this, and going and automating the accounting journey, which is another challenge. We see today that a lot of times today accounting teams don't have a visibility at a transaction level.
Absolutely.
So whenever they're closing their books, if they're supposed to get $1 million, they get maybe 1,000 less. They have no idea where that delta is coming from. So we also, have an organic accounting where we also want to automate that journey. So that's our vision, to create that unified modern payment back office, which is going to automate each and every step of the post-transaction journey.
And can we put an ROI to that? Can you go further and give us a more perspective there?
Absolutely, Sandra. As you know, for any CFO organization, without a ROI, there is no project. So what we see from an ROI point generally is, I would break it down into 4 important critical parameters. First, obviously, is the reduction in the revenue leakage that we see. Now, whenever we see organizations move from summary level to a transaction level reconciliation, we see that they start identifying these issues where they have revenue leakages in form of billing errors, settlements, missing settlements, delayed settlements, incorrect fees being charged. So again, we see somewhere, about 0.3 to 4% of revenue leakage being detected, and actually an proactive action being taken and recovering that money. Second, obviously, is the operational inefficiencies, right? All these manual processes means that you have large teams working on Excels, doing subpar processes. So again, when you get in Optimus or a modern, platform, you're going to automate all of that. So that's a big plus when it comes to scalability as well.
Yeah.
So we see today a lot of organizations where they enter new regions, their transaction volumes spike, and they don't have the systems to scale with this. So again, having a scalable system is, a huge plus. Also, we've seen another aspect is reduction in disputes and chargebacks.
Oh, that's a hot topic.
So when you can identify things before they impact your customers or before a payment incident, that really helps you to drive down those disputes costs as well. And finally, the most important thing I think which a lot of us miss when we talk about back office is the security and compliance aspect of it. We see that the same payments data, whenever you're dealing with it at a front end, whether it's through a payment gateway or any orchestration platform, you have all these standards of it being PCI DSS certified,
Absolutely,
SOX compliant. But the same data, when it comes in the back office, is floating on an Excel. And that's where it's funny, where the same data, just because now we are in the back office, it's Excel, there are no security standards. So that's what we want to change as well. We want to give a really secure payment back office where that same data has that level of compliance, security, which is there on the front end as well.
And, this is increasingly important because you cannot circumvent that. The compliance aspect is at the core of everything. So in any way the data being manipulated, it has to be sitting within that framework as the starting ground and building upon that to then, enable the efficiency. And I think what you say, I'm laughing because you living and breathing that reality, and that's the passion that led you to found and create that business. And it's, for me, still increasingly shocking to see that is happening, that silo between department, the way the data in one hand would be really, well, protected, and the way it gets transmitted from one end to the other hand, from one team to the other, can break all the rules, right? Yeah. And so it's quite interesting that even the biggest organization have these sorts of gaps, right, in their operational efficiency. And that's the value of having business like yours still coming to the market with a solution which is at the core of the operation. The back office is everything, right? It's not just the customer experience and the conversion and blah, 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 blah. If you're not on top of what's happening in the back end, essentially there's huge revenue losses. And most businesses operate with tiny margins. Hence, every single element of optimizations and, percentage that you can gain back on the bottom line are increasingly important for treasury and finance teams. So
Absolutely.
I'm totally with you. With that in mind, I'm just thinking, what do you think about the next, 5 years? Where do you see this going, the industry going, the challenges? Where do you think the priority, and how do you see the shift in terms of there is already a great focus, and I think a lot of organizations are starting to make a priority, but then there's also a lot more work to be done, right? That's the reason of you being in existence. So what's your vision in terms of anticipating how things are going to evolve and trends in the next 5 years in this space?
Absolutely. So, last decade we've seen a lot of automation come in, but I think the next decade is going to be about being autonomous.
Okay.
Where it's not just about automation, but it's about being much more smarter than that. Where today back offices, when it comes to finance, treasuries, right? It's not about just automating those processes, but how do I get more insights from the data that I'm sitting on? So we are, what I really envision is having an autonomous data platform, which is not only going to be able to automate these steps, but also provide extra intelligence in form of insights, right? And the biggest thing to even get there is kind of laying a foundation for AI. And the first step of laying a foundation for AI is to have a unified, clean data set, because your AI is going to be only as good as the data that you're sitting on.
Absolutely.
So again, from a long-term vision, I see that every organization is going to have such a modern back office, which is not only just going to automate their processes, but it will also be autonomous. It is going to give key insights to the CFO organizations in terms of where are those avenues where they can optimize their cost of payments, where are those avenues where they can go and pretty much reduce those leakages, and in all also ensure that's going to have a positive impact on the profitability.
One last thing, what would be some tips you would leave for the community out there that are on that journey, cleaning, aggregating data, optimizing the operation? What would be 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would give them as a starting point?
I think definitely start thinking about data more as an enabler, where think about how I can get all this on a unified platform, because that is laying foundation for the future journey, which includes AI.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I hope you have enjoyed this video as well. This is a video courtesy of the MP community. We had Optimus Fintech here, represented by the CEO and founder Swapnil. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sandra. It was a pleasure.